All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of a letter of Jeremiah, and this is found in the Apocrypha. As is, I'm going to read a little bit just a little bit of background about it. But it's pretty much a letter written by Jeremiah, though you have some scholars, so-called scholars and historians that try to say otherwise, right? And say that no, it was written by somebody else in a different time period. But we believe it was written by Jeremiah to the Israelites that were going to be exiled to Babylon, right? And he was basically warning them about what they would see, right? What they could expect to see over there when they go to Babylon concerning idolatry and the idols that were over there, and that they shouldn't be swayed or, you know, caused to err in going after the way of these idols. So that's the bulk of what the letter of Jeremiah is going into, right? He's just further reiterating the worthlessness of these idols and the folly in idolatry, right? And those that worship idols. So a little bit of background here. Letter of Jeremiah. The letter of Jeremiah, also known as the Epistle of Jeremiah, is a deuterocanonical book of the Old Testament. And deuterocanonical meaning pertaining to or constituting a second canon, collectively known as the Deuterocanon, are certain books and passages considered to be canonical books of the Old Testament, meaning that it's a part of the other Old Testament books, right? It's recognized as one of them. So when they say something is canon, it's like it's part of that same collection over there, not its own separate thing. This letter is attributed to Jeremiah and addressed to the Jews who were about to be carried away as captives to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. It is included now. This would be, we know that in 87/86, you had the siege of Jerusalem. Say 586 or 587. And this was when the Babylonians actually came there and destroyed, right? They broke down the walls, they burnt the temple, they razed it, as you would say. But prior to this actually happening, there were a series of exiles, right? Where the Babylonians came and prior to coming and actually destroying the place, they would take certain Israelites as captives or exiles to Babylon. So when you read in the book of Daniel, for example, he's one of those exiles. There's the reason why Ezekiel is in Babylon and prophesying about, also what's going on in Jerusalem is because he was also in that middle period before Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians, right? So he was one of the exiles that was sent to Babylon ahead of the Babylonians coming and besieging and completely destroying Jerusalem over there. So you can read about it. I'm sure they'll have some information about that in here. If you look up Siege of Jerusalem, 587, or even exile, Babylonian exile of Jerusalem, they'll give you the different time periods for that. So going back here, where are we? It is included in Catholic, right? So basically he was telling them, hey, when you go there, this is what you can expect to see, and don't be dismayed by it. It is included in Catholic or Catholic Bibles as the final chapter of the book of Baruch, that is Baruch, the 6th chapter. It is included in Orthodox and Assyrian Church of the East Bibles as a separate book, and it is in the Apocrypha as the King James Version. And that's what we have on here. Cool. Just a little bit on here. It says, according to the text of the letter, the author is the biblical prophet Jeremiah. The biblical book of Jeremiah itself contains the words of a letter sent by Jeremiah from Jerusalem to the captives in Babylon. That's in Jeremiah, the 29th chapter. The letter of Jeremiah portrays itself as a similar piece of correspondence. So let's get into it. This is Jeremiah, letter of Jeremiah, chapter 1. Now, also, reference is made to Jeremiah here in 2nd Maccabees, the first 3 verses, right? 2nd Maccabees, chapter 2, about how he also instructed the Israelites prior to, coming to Babylon of the things that they can expect, but the things that they should keep in mind in terms of fearing and serving the Lord. So let's read that real quick. 2nd Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 1. It is also found in the records that Jeremy, which is another way of saying Jeremiah, the prophet, commanded them that were carried away to Babylon, to take of the fire as it had been signified. So, and this is talking about from the temple, right? The fire that would be burning upon the altar. Now you got to think about it, right? If this happened during the destruction of Jerusalem, that really wouldn't have, been too possible per se, right? Because now you're under siege. It's also not saying it's impossible, right? They could have, tried their best to get that, but I think that it makes more sense to have been, prior to that actual siege where they completely destroyed everything. A lot of people died during that time. A lot of Israelites died during that time as well. But either way, that's not the point of focus here. So verse 2, and how that the prophet, having given them the law, charged them, charging meaning he commanded them, not to forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err in their minds, meaning don't go astray in your minds when you get there and get enticed to not serve the Lord, right? And to go into the idolatrous ways of the heathen. When they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments, that's talking about those idols. Because that's what an image is. Today, when people think of an image, they think of the digital version or a picture that's drawn. But in the ancient world, they made images as in a resemblance, right, of an animal or something of that sort, and they worshiped them as idols. Verse 3, and with other such speeches exhorted he them that that the law should not depart from their hearts. So this is letter of Jeremiah, chapter 1, a copy of an epistle which Jeremy or Jeremiah sent unto them which were to be led captives into Babylon by the king of the Babylonians. See, so those that were to be led captives, and this would have been Nebuchadnezzar II, right, at this time, to certify them as it was commanded him of God. So the Lord, the Most High, basically told Jeremiah to have this letter written and sent to them, the Israelites that would be carried off captives into Babylon, to keep this in mind. Because of the sins which ye have committed before God, ye shall be led away captives into Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Babylonians. And when you read the book of Jeremiah, right, in its entirety, you get a good sense in terms of context as to why, and even prior to Jeremiah, but why he said this, right? Because Israel they were leading a life in sin. And that's why the Lord sent so many prophets to turn them aside from that, but they would not listen, even up until that very time when the Babylonians were right up at their doorstep. So that's why the Lord said by the mouth of Jeremiah, you're going to be sent away captives to Babylon. So when ye come unto Babylon, ye shall remain there many years, and for a long season, namely 7 generations, also translated as 70 years. And in some of the other verses, like in Daniel 9 and so on and so forth. And this 7 generations was a rough estimate, right? A rough period of time within which we would be captives in Babylon. And after that, I will bring you away peaceably from thence. And when you read about the history, that's what happened, right? Cyrus the Great came up into power, and the Lord put the spirit on him to allow us to go and start rebuilding the temple. And, over the process of different Persian rulers, we were able to finally get the ability to do so, and also to return back, right, during the time of Ezra, which led a group of Israelites, back to Jerusalem, even though you already had some that had returned at that time. But we pretty much had the leeway because the Lord put the spirit upon these Persian rulers to allow us to return back to Israel, right, to Jerusalem. Now shall ye see in Babylon gods of silver and of gold and of wood, borne upon shoulders. And so these gods, which are these idols, right, they would make them, they would overlay them, or make molten images, right, by melting gold and silver and then forming it into these shapes. Borne upon shoulders, when something is borne, borne, means it's carried. And obviously they had to carry it because, in its shrine or whatnot, palanquin, because it's obviously it can't move, which caused the nations to fear, right? Because they believed that these gods were actually real and powerful, so they were afraid of them. They worshiped them. Jeremiah is saying here, for you is not the case, right? So beware. So it says here, beware therefore that ye in no wise be like to strangers, neither be ye and of them. Meaning, don't start to, even though you're going to be amongst them, you're going to see what they do. You're going to hear them talk about the glory of these idols and the little myths about them and so on. Don't become like them. Don't be like to them, all right, the heathen in the land. When you see the multitude before them and behind them worshiping them, right? Because you're going to see people in there, preceding the idols and going behind them and worshiping them. And, you kind of see it today, more prevalent in like some of the Eastern countries, right? In India and some of these other areas, you'll see they'll have the celebrations and they'll have like the couple of men carrying upon their shoulders the idol, and then people, the whole cities around it and cheering, and they have marks on their face and all these things. Verse 6, but say ye in your hearts, O Lord, we must worship thee. For mine angel is with you, and I myself caring for your souls. Now remember, it said the Lord commanded Jeremiah to write this letter, right? So this is speaking from the perspective of the Lord when it says, for mine angel is with you, and I myself caring for your souls, right? That's what the perspective of the Lord. As for their tongue, and it is polished by the workmen. This is now dealing with the idols, right? Design in terms of the design of the idols, right? Their tongue, their words. This is something that's created by the workmen. And they themselves are gilded and laid over with silver, yet are they but false and cannot speak. So they're designed, they're made to look a certain way, but in actuality, they're not real. They can't even talk. And taking gold, as it were, for a virgin that loveth to go gay, they make crowns for the heads of their gods. Now, this isn't, the word gay here doesn't mean, it's not, doesn't mean the modern sense of it, right? It doesn't mean their alternative lifestyle. This is referring to like attire, right? When you look at the old English understanding for it. So here what it's saying is, the worshipers of these idols, they decorate the idols with gold as if, or just like how a young woman or young virgin who loves to sort of, dress with ornaments and all this jewelry around them, right? This gold on them. That's what it means by, as it were, right? They deck these idols with gold as if they were a virgin that loves to be clothed in these gold ornaments and gold attire. That's what it means by loveth to go gay. They made crowns for the heads of their gods, right? So they said they make these gold crowns and once again these ornaments and place them upon these idols as though they're real. Sometimes also the priests convey from their gods gold and silver and bestow it upon themselves, right? And this is the priests basically stealing from these idols. An example is in Bel and the Dragon. Daniel proved to Cyrus that indeed it wasn't the idol that was eating, it was the priests that were sneaking in there at night and eating all the food. So here he's saying like this is a farce, right? This isn't even like a real, these idols are not real. Their priests don't even honor them to that degree. Like their priests convey as in to take their gold and silver from these idols and then use it for themselves. Yea, they will give thereof to the common harlots and deck them as men with garments. Yeah, they use it for themselves. They even spend it on harlots, and then they decorate the idols as though they were men with garments, like how a man would, he would style out his garment, put some gold jewels in there, some gold on the neck, the chain, the wrists, all those. They That's how they decorate these idols, being gods of silver and gods of gold and wood. Yet cannot these gods save themselves from rust and moth. Yeah. So at the end of the day, they're still gonna rust depending on the material they're made of, or they're gonna decay if they're made of wood, because they don't have any power. Though they be covered with purple raiment, and purple raiment is to represent royalty, right? A high level individuals would be clothed in that, which is honor. But Jeremiah is saying here, even though they're clothed in these honorable attires and so on, they still rust and decay, because they're just that, inanimate objects made of the elements of the world. They wipe their faces because of the dust of the temple. That is, the worshippers of these idols have to come and clean them, because eventually, dust starts to get on them when there is much upon them, right? So when the dust starts to build up, they have to go and wipe and clean the idols to maintain it. And he that cannot put to death one that offendeth him holdeth a scepter, right? So these idols are held in high position as though having the authority of a king, right? Some of them are even designed with, you'll see a little statue holding a natural scepter as though it's some ruler. People go and bow down to it. But if somebody was to offend it or even spit on it, it wouldn't even be able to put them to death. It wouldn't be able to give any commands, as though he were a judge of a country. He hath also in his right hand a dagger and an axe, but cannot deliver himself from war and thieves. So once again, you have some that, and not all idols are miniature statues, right? Some of them are like larger, maybe life-sized statues, and they'll have like weapons in their hands. But here it is: if there's a war or thieves break in, they can't even defend themselves. Whereby they are known not to be gods. So Jeremiah is saying this is a perfect example that these aren't any gods. So don't fear them, right? Therefore fear them not. For like as a vessel that a man useth is nothing worth when it is broken. If you have a mug and it slips from your hand one day and breaks, what more can you do with it aside from sweeping it up and throwing it out? Can't do anything with it. All right. So that's what he's saying. Like a vessel that you use it becomes worthless when it breaks. Even so it is with their gods. Right? He's saying that's the value of your gods. Your gods are like a broken vase that all is good for is just to be swept up and thrown away. When they be set up in the temple, their eyes be full of dust through the feet of them that come in. Meaning, like, because remember, in the ancient world, it's not like people walking around with the new pair of Nikes and Air Force Ones and so on. A lot of the footwear was open-toed, what we would call like slippers or sandals. So when you would walk into a building, that's why oftentimes they would offer water to wash your feet from all the dust and the dirt. But here it's saying that these idols, when their worshipers come into the temple, all the dust and dirt that is on their feet comes up and eventually makes the idols dirty, right? Their face is all full of it, and they can't even wipe it. They need somebody else to come and clean them. And as the doors are made sure on every side upon him that offendeth the king, as being committed to suffer death, right? Which here he's giving an example. He's saying that just like a criminal, right? One that commits an offense, is tightly locked down, right? In prison, like as if he was sentenced to death. That is how, as it says, even so the priests make fast. The word fast is not speed; it's like firm. That's what it means. Make fast their temples with doors, with locks and bars, lest their gods be spoiled with robbers. So imagine one of the most heinous criminals that is like on solitary confinement, deep lockdown after lockdown after lockdown. Jeremiah is saying here that's how much precaution these priests take when locking the temples of their idols, because they fear that their idols would be robbed or spoiled. going to show you how weak and worthless they are. Who can say, oh, you know what? Let me go and build a solitary confinement safe house for the Most High, because I'm afraid that if thieves or robbers come in, they could hurt him or rob him. In fact, I think there's a precept that mentions, shall a man rob God? I think Job might have said that. And the answer is no. They light them candles, yea, more than for themselves, whereof they cannot see one. So listen to how this is, how ridiculous this sounds. They light more candles for these idols than for themselves, and these idols can't even see. When you go into their temple, it's just lights everywhere, and they can't even see it. They are as one of the beams of the temple, right? Meaning like one of the bars in terms of the material used to build the temple. He's saying like that's literally comparable to these idols, because that's what they are. The beam is just designed one way to support the the rest of the structure of the temple. So people they look at it as, oh, it's just like a wall, right, or a pillar. Well, guess what? This idol is pretty much the same thing. It's just been carved out into a different shape. That's all it is. You don't go to the pillar and offer it food and bow down and pray to it. Yet they say their heart is gnawed upon by things creeping out of the earth, and when they eat them and their clothes, they feel it not. And this is to reiterate the fact that they're just made of, let's say, wood, right, or some regular material that they don't even feel when they're decaying, right? If you have like insects, termites, and whatnot, if it's made of wood, that start to get in there and start to destroy the idol because it's made of wood, they don't feel that. So when it says their heart, it means like, when termites get into wood, it's within. You crack, you'll see the wood starts to become very weak, and it just breaks almost on its own. And on the inside, it's just full of termites and like different bugs. So he's saying here, like from the inside out, right? They're getting gnawed upon by these insects and these creeping things, and their clothing or whatever you put on them eventually starts to decay, and they don't even feel any of that. Why? Because they're not real. They don't exist. They're not alive. Their faces are blackened through the smoke that cometh out of the temple. Once again, going back to what he mentioned before, how through the candles and so on that are lit in there, that smoke eventually builds up. It gets on them, and they can't do anything about it. They need somebody to come and clean them. Upon their bodies and heads sit bats, swallows, which are birds, and the cats also. So there you go. That's your reference for cats back in the ancient world. They existed back then. And there's your precept. So Jeremiah is saying here, like they're literally like a I don't even know what to call it, like a perch, right, or a little squatting station where bats and birds and even cats come and rest upon. By this ye may know that they are no gods, therefore fear them not. Notwithstanding the gold that is about them to make them beautiful, except they wipe off the rust, they will not shine. Right. So the gold that they've put on them, as it rusts, unless they clean that, it's not even going to look pure. For neither when they were molten did they feel it. So when they were being cast, right, the heat and all that, they didn't even feel that. Why? Because they're not alive. The things wherein there is no breath are bought for a most high price. That is these idols. People pay a whole amount, a large sum of money for these idols, and they don't have any breath, meaning they're not living. They are carried upon shoulders, having no feet, whereby they declare unto men that they be nothing worth. See? So the fact that they have to be carried everywhere, not having feet, not being able to walk, is a declaration that they're worthless. They also that serve them are ashamed. For if they fall to the ground at any time, they cannot rise up again of themselves. So here it is, you bowing and praying to this idol, then it falls. The wind blows and it falls. Now you got to stop, you got to get up, you got to run, you got to pick it back up, set it in its place, and then go back. Neither if one set them upright can they move of themselves. Neither if they be bowed down can they make themselves straight. If it falls down, it can't pick itself up. But they set gifts before them as unto dead men. So their worshipers come and bring all these gifts before them, but it's like taking gifts to a grave. Bruh, if you go and put flowers by a grave, the person ain't gonna smell it. You're going to put food over there. It's probably maybe whoever's working around there that's going to take it off of there, but the person that's dead is not going to eat it. So he's saying it's like setting gifts. You put in gold and what's this idol going to do? It's going to animate and come and take the gold and go to a pawn shop and exchange it, and start buying some Louis Vuitton. And no. As for the things that are sanctified or sacrificed onto them, their priests sell and abuse. See, so it's the priests that end up, enjoying these things that are sacrificed, the food and the meat and all of that, because idols ain't gonna eat it. In like manner, their wives lay up part thereof in salt, meaning that these priests they enjoy it, them and their families, and then the parts that remain they preserve it with salt, because salt is used as a preservant. That's the word. Um, but unto the poor and impotent they give nothing of it. So they don't even give some of that food to the poor. They just hog it all for themselves. Menstruous women and women in childbed eat their sacrifices. By these things ye may know that they are no gods. Fear them not. Yeah, because in comparison to our God, menstruous women and women in childbed, right, a woman that's just given birth, they're considered ceremonially unclean. And the law tells you that one that is unclean is not to eat of the holy things, right? And they're basically to be separated, set apart. But here it is. These idols have these women that are considered unclean due to their state, eating of their sacrifices, which goes to show you they are no gods. For how can they be called gods? Because women set meat before the gods of silver, gold, and wood, right? And once again, in comparison to our laws, right, which Jeremiah is basically using this somewhat as a comparison. Like, look, they got women that are setting up, all these things and setting the meat before the gods of silver and gold. Like, there's no order, right? It's just perverse, contrary to how the Lord is very specific and how He ordered us to live and to serve Him. Going to show that these idols are not any gods. They don't have any respect. And the priests sit in their temples, having their clothes rent, and their heads and beards shaven, and nothing upon their heads. They roar and cry before their gods, as men do at the feast when one is dead. The priests also take off their garments and clothe their wives and children. Meaning, like this, he's saying, like when their priests go in there, to before these idols to service or to serve or to pray or whatever it is. These are their ordinances. This is what they do, and it rather resembles being at like a funeral of one that is dead rather than being in the presence of a living God. Verse 34, whether it be evil that one doeth unto them or good, they are not able to recompense it. So if somebody does good to them, they can't reward the person. If somebody does evil to them, they cannot, judge the person. They can neither set up a king nor put him down, unlike the Lord who setteth up one and taketh one down. These idols don't have the power to do that. In like manner, they can neither give riches nor money. Though a man make a vow unto them and keep it not, they will not require it. So even if somebody made a vow to these idols here, and then they broke that vow, there's no recompense. These idols cannot require it at that person's hand. They can't penalize them. They can't judge them for it. None of that. Why? Because then they're not alive. They can save no man from death, neither deliver the weak from the mighty. They cannot restore a blind man to his sight, nor help any man in his distress. They can shew no mercy to the widow, nor do good to the fatherless. Their gods of wood, and which are overlaid with gold and silver, are like the stones that be hewn out of the mountain. They that worship them shall be confounded, because it'll be found out that, there's no difference between you bowing down to this idol versus you just picking up a rock off the ground and bowing to it. Or you seeing a branch or a tree stump, cut out a bit of it, and then you bow down to that. That's the equivalent of what you're doing. How should a man then think and say that these are gods, or that they are gods, when even the Chaldeans themselves dishonor them, right? And when you go into Babylon, these were the Chaldeans were the higher class, right? Even the wise men and so on, they were like the upper class of Babylon. And he's saying here, even they dishonor these idols. And then he goes on to give an example here, right? It says, who concerning these idols, if they shall see, or the Chaldeans, if they shall see one dumb that cannot speak, right? This and in verse 40, I don't think he's saying that they blatantly dishonor them, but he's saying in their actions and in how they go about to even serve these idols, they dishonor them because they only prove the worthlessness of these idols that they're worshiping or serving in the first place. So if they see somebody that's dumb, right, that can't speak, they bring him and entreat Bel, which is one of their idols. That's the whole Bel and the dragon, right? It's Bel is the name of their idol, or Baal. They entreat Bel that he may speak, as though he were able to understand. So they'll take this person who can't speak to this idol, and then they'll pray to this idol on behalf of this person to give the person the ability to speak, as though the idol itself can even understand what they're saying. Yet they cannot understand this themselves and leave them, for they have no knowledge. Meaning these worshipers, these idol worshipers, can't even understand the fact that the idols they're serving cannot hear or understand or do anything. And because they don't have that level of understanding, they're not able to leave these idols. And the reason they can't do that is because they don't have the knowledge. So they've been blinded. I mean, that's the the baseness, okay, in the idols of these heathens. Okay, so in other words, due to their lack of understanding, they are not able to leave off from these idols and perceive that these idols are not real. The women also with cords about them, sitting in the ways, which when you look into this, it also goes into like aside from just being, because remember, Jeremiah is talking about idols here. So aside from just randomly here, he just jumps to talking about harlots, just random prostitutes. This is more attributed to like temple harlots, right? Harlots that are in association with an idol, right? Likely here in verse 43, performing some fertility ritual or so on. That's why they have the cords about them. Okay, so here he's describing women, as it says, with cords about them, sitting in the ways, right, in the open paths, basically to attract people. Burn brand for perfume, part of that ritual. But if any of them, drawn by some that passeth by, lie with him, she reproacheth her fellow, that she was not thought as worthy as herself, nor her cord broken. So from this context here, you would have a woman or women, and they would basically be out there looking for people passing by to sort of allure them to engage, to basically lay with them, right? To have sex with them as part of their ritual. And when they do that, they would break the cord. And so let's say you had one woman that would, get whatever, a customer, a victim, whatever you want to call them, and then go ahead and do this. She would basically use that to sort of extol herself above the rest. Like you weren't worthy, right? That's why nobody came with you. I was the worthy one, hence X, Y, and Z. And Jeremiah is using this example just to highlight the folly and how pathetic it is to worship these idols. He's saying, like, look at how their priests even behave. Look at how their customs and rituals are set up, right? It's all out of order. It's all base. It's debauchery. It's not even holy. All right. Verse 44 says, whatsoever is done among them is false. How may it then be thought or said that they are gods? They are made of carpenters and goldsmiths. They can be nothing else than the workmen will have them be. See, so when a carpenter, first off, the tree is cut and then it's carved, right, into whatever shape the workman decides, right, or the goldsmith who overlays it with gold. So that's what he's saying here. He's saying, like, yo, they're only going to come out the way the workman wants them to. If he says this is going to be a fish, guess what? That's going to be a fish. It's not going to be able to say, hold up, nah, dog, you tripping. I'm a cat. You better design me like a cat. It's not going to be able to do that. and they themselves that made them can never continue long. Meaning, even the human beings, the workman that makes these idols, doesn't live forever. How should then the things that are made of them be gods? So you have a mortal being that creates an idol. How then is the creator of this idol, which he himself doesn't live forever, he's mortal, how then is he going to create something that's going to live longer, that's going to be made a god? It doesn't make sense. For they left lies and reproaches to them that come after. Yeah, because they'll make these idols, they'll set them up, and then they'll have these stories and so on about them, but it's all lies. So those that come after continue in the same way and worship them. They've been worshiping them for generations, but it's all lies. It's all vain. Verse 48, for when there cometh any war or plague upon them, the priests consult with themselves where they may be hidden with them. So if there a war breaks out, some danger breaks out, the priests have to come together and think, yo, like, where can we hide and take these idols with us? But if these were gods, it should be the other way. Like, they should be protecting you. But here it is, you're looking for where to hide and where to hide these idols with them. It's almost like what you would do if you had a baby or a child. Like, you're like, yo, I got to protect this child. How then do you go and worship that child? Like, what? Yeah. Verse 49. How then cannot men perceive that these be no gods? So after all this, how do you still look at them and think that these are gods, which can neither save themselves from war nor from plague? For seeing they be but of wood, and overlaid with silver and gold, it shall be known hereafter that they are false. See, he's saying, like, these idols are nothing. They're literally made of wood, gold, and silver. The same wood, gold, and silver you see around and you use and you buy and you sell with it and so on. Eventually, it's going to come out that these idols, these gods, are false. And it shall manifestly appear to all nations and kings that they are no gods, but the works of men's hands, and that there is no work of God in them. See, so it's gonna be made apparent that this isn't the work of the Lord, right? They don't have the power as deities or as gods or anything of that sort. Okay, they're just idols. Who then may not know that they are no gods? It's like saying, who doesn't know? Who, like, by now, who doesn't know that these aren't any gods? Like, this isn't even something I should have to tell you. For neither can they set up a king in the land, nor give rain unto men. Neither can they judge their own cause, nor redress a wrong. So should a matter happen, they can't judge the matter, even if it was something they were wronged. If somebody stole an idol, right, and then the people eventually found out who did it, and then they returned the idol can't give a command and say, hey, this person stole, you got to put him to death. It can't. Being unable, for they are as crows between heaven and earth, which is really just like like ordinary birds, right? Just like the birds you see flying in the air, in the firmament, in the atmosphere, whatever. That's like them. There's no power, right? You don't see a crow and you're wondering, oh my gosh, like, I better make sure I don't breathe too much, lest the crow curse me or lest the crow, plague me. Whereupon, when fire falleth upon the house of gods of wood, or laid over with gold or silver, their priests will flee away and escape, but they themselves shall be burned asunder like beams. See, if there was a fire that broke out in their temple, the priests would be out of there. They're trying to live. But what's going to happen to those idols, those gods of wood and gold and silver? They're going to melt and burn, just like all the other materials in that temple. Moreover, they cannot withstand any king or enemies. How can it then be thought or said that they be gods? Yeah, if another king was to come in there and wage war against their people, those gods, those idols can't stand up to them. How then do you turn around and say that these are gods? You know what's an example of a true God? Look at what happened when in the book of Maccabees, when Heliodorus came to Jerusalem, to Israel, to come and get the money out of the treasury. Or when I believe it was Ptolemy Philopator, I believe the fourth, if I'm not mistaken, who tried to come into the holy part of the temple against our the will of the Israelites, and the Lord struck him down. He didn't die at the time, but he basically was like stroked out, he caught like a stroke or something, right? And that's in the book of Third Maccabees. So that's an example that if enemies come or kings come against us, we got a God that can defend us. It's not so with these idols. Neither are those gods of wood and laid over with silver or gold able to escape either from thieves or robbers. If a thief breaks into that temple, that idol is cooked. The idol is not going, oh shit, hold up, and it's going to stand up and grow legs and then freaking, book it out of there doing hurdles over the damn tables and shit. No. Whose gold and silver and garments wherewith they are clothed, they that are strong take. Yeah, if a thief or robber breaks in there, they see that idol, like, damn, they got the gold on the gold chain, the gold bracelets, the purple garments. They're gonna steal all that off of the idol, and the idol's not gonna do a thing about it. And go away with all. Neither are they able to help themselves. Therefore it is better to be a king that sheweth his power, or else a profitable vessel in an house, right? It's better to be a king who can at least give commands. You have authority, you have power, or even a useful vessel, right? Once again, the example I gave, like a vase or a bowl, right? A bowl that you eat in, or a jug that you drink water from, or whatever liquids from. That's more useful. It's better to be that than an idol, because that actually has a purpose, a useful purpose, which the owner shall have use of, than such false gods. Or to be a door in an house, to keep such things therein, than such false gods. It's better that you were a door, because at least, once again, you're needed, right? Whenever you ever seen a house, like if it's a house that you're going to live in, there's going to be a door, right? There's going to be some form of a door. When you think of a house, one of the components is a door. Even a car has a door. Planes have doors. Doors are important. They keep things in, keep things secure, and they keep things out. It's better to be a door than an idol, than a false god, because a door has more purpose and importance than that. Or a pillar of wood in a palace than such false gods. Once again, a pillar of wood, one of the foundations, one of the walls in a palace has more significance than a false god. For sun, moon, and stars, being bright and sent to do their offices, are obedient, right? Going to show you that the sun and the moon and all that, they obey the commandment of the Lord. So he's saying, even when the Lord commands them, they're obedient. They go and they do their stuff. They do whatever the Lord has commanded them to do. That's why the Lord can say that for the sun, go back this many degrees, right? Or today you just stay up here. You don't go down today, and it's gonna do it. It says, in like manner, the lightning, when it breaketh forth, is easy to be seen. And after the same manner, the wind bloweth in every country. So each of these have a purpose. When lightning strikes, everybody knows what it is, and you can see it from far away. When the wind blows, all those around are going to feel that wind, and you know what it is, and it has its purpose. And when God commandeth the clouds to go over the whole world, they do as they are bidden. And the fire sent from above to consume hills and woods doeth as it is commanded. So if the Lord brings down fire from heaven, like he did with Sodom and Gomorrah and different accounts, that fire is going to do what the Lord sent it to do. Fire ain't going to come in and right before it hits the ground, whoa, hold up, wait, time out. There's a grandma over here. Lord, you sure about this? Oh, come on, you can't. No, it's gonna burn where the Lord has said it to burn. But these are like unto them that them neither in shoe nor power. So he's saying all the things Jeremiah described, right? Lightning, wind, fire, the sun, the moon, the stars, all of these things, these idols can't even compare to those things in appearance, in shoe, or in power, because all of these have a purpose. All of these obey the commandment of the Lord. All of them have a glory, right, in their own respect. These idols, nada, not even comparable. Wherefore it is neither to be supposed nor said that they are gods, seeing they are able neither to judge causes nor to do good unto men. See? So you can't, he's saying as a result, you shouldn't look at these idols as gods. Okay? I've given you all the reasons and proof, more than enough, as to why these people, number one, worshiping these idols, you got no business with that. Okay? As it says, they can't even judge any cases. They can't judge any causes. So if you go there and they're like, oh, you can't do this, or you're going to anger the gods, or you're going to do this, those are idols. They can't do anything. Right? They can't do harm to you, and they can't do good to you. Knowing that now, some people may say, oh, but I've had experiences, in life. I went to this area and they did this voodoo joint and it works. Yeah, but those are demons. Demons are real. Those demonic spirits, they're real. And demons are intelligent and they're deceptive. So a demon, you may go down and bow to some shrine, some physical looking idol, and a demon might make things happen. But the concept of that idol itself and the story attributed to it and it's not real, because the demon that's making it happen is a servant of the Lord. It's an angel on the left-hand side of the Lord. That demon isn't some god that just, spawned. No, it's working it's doing its job to deceive people, to influence people. That's what they do. Okay. So yeah, I mean, left-handed things are real, witches and so on. They use real stuff, but that's demonic energy. That's not an actual god or idol. It's just a demon. So verse 65, knowing therefore that they are no gods, fear them not. Don't be afraid of them. For they can neither curse nor bless kings. Neither can they shew signs in the heavens among the heathen, nor shine as the sun, nor give light as the moon. Look, the sun has a great purpose. The sun, you can actually see the sun move from one area to another. You can feel the heat of the sun. You can see the light of the moon, right? All of these things, the moon, and how it affects the tides and affects people's behavior. These all have living characteristics, right? Like effects on people. These idols don't. Okay. From the point somebody goes and carves out an idol to the point where that idol is destroyed, nothing is actually done by that idol itself. Okay. Verse 68, the beasts are better than they, meaning the animals, for they can get under a cover and help themselves. If it starts raining, I've seen a video where it started raining in the zoo and you had these, I don't remember what, if they were monkeys or chimpanzees or apes, but they were some of that, one of those. And it starts raining and they grab like these giant leaves and they cover their head with it and they run towards shelter so that they don't get rained on. Even animals can do that. Cats, dogs, they run out of the rain. An idol can't. It's going to stay right at the same place it was. It is then by no means manifest unto us that they are God. See, there's nothing about these idols that manifests or shows us that they are actually gods. Therefore, fear them not. For as a scarecrow in a garden of cucumbers keepeth nothing. If you put a scarecrow in a garden, it's called a scarecrow because its only a use is to scare. But if whatever animal it is, it comes there, sees the scarecrow, oh shit, then it goes back. If it's smart enough and it comes again, it's like, okay, well, I'm moving, but it's not doing anything. Then it goes around the scarecrow and then it goes around again. It's like, oh, this thing ain't going to do anything. Then it's going to go ahead and still tear up your crops. So, as it says, as a scarecrow in a garden of cucumbers keepeth nothing, the scarecrow itself can't actually protect your cucumbers. Whatever animal is after your cucumbers, the second it's not scared anymore, it can eat the cucumbers right in front of the scarecrow and nothing is going to happen. The scarecrow cannot protect your garden in that sense. So are their gods of wood and laid over with silver and gold. He said, this is the example. If the animal believes the scarecrow to be dangerous, that's the only effect they can have. Just like people believe these idols to be real. That's in their head. But in actuality, in reality, it's not the case. And likewise, their gods of wood and laid over with silver and gold are like to a white thorn in an orchard that every bird sitteth upon. So like a branch, that's in the, in a, in an orchard, you have birds that come and land upon it. They may make their nest upon it, and it's literally not. It's not. The branch ain't gonna say, "Oh, yeah, shoot, get off me." It ain't gonna do that because it can't. Likewise, same as these idols. As also to a dead body that is east into the dark. So here it's like saying these idols are comparable to like a corpse that's like in the dark somewhere. It can't do anything. It's literally just there. If you looked at it, if you turned around, if you came to it, if you went home and came, it's going to be laying in the same spot, not doing a damn thing until eventually it rots. Verse 72, and ye shall know them to be no gods by the bright purple that rotteth upon them, and they themselves afterwards shall be eaten, and shall be a reproach in the country. And what Jeremiah is saying here is basically you're going to know that they're not any gods because they decay, right? That bright purple that rotteth upon them is just describing them decaying, right? Either if they're made of wood or gold and silver and rusting and eventually just being consumed, right? Or eaten, decaying, and eventually found out to be a reproach to those that try to worship them. So, in other words, unlike these actual idols, a true God does not decay. A true God does not rot. A true God is not consumed by corruption. So the fact that these idols is all the more proof that they are false gods. Verse 73, better therefore is the just man that hath none idols, for he shall be far from reproach. Because the just man who doesn't have any idols is never going to get to a point where, you try to depend on these idols and find out that they don't exist. And you find out the hard way and you suffer that reproach. Okay, amongst whatever else you're going to go through because you're praying and nothing is happening. And you're oh, please help this. My daughter's sick. Help her. And then she dies. The idol ain't real. And that is the end of the letter of Jeremiah. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative onto the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.